Hey one, hey all, it's Friday and you know what that means. It means it's countdown day, and today we're going to kind of focus on gimmicks a little bit. Some of the greatest characters that we know and love in the Transformers franchise exist because of gimmicks. We've already, for example, looked at combiners. Well, today we're going to focus on a completely different gimmick. Today we're going to look at the best of the best when it comes to the Headmasters characters. That's right, our focus today is going to be the top 10 Transformers Headmasters characters in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe while you're at it. Light them up, baby. And hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, The Autobot Family, Transformers vs. G.I. Joe vs. DC Universe vs. Marvel, and all of my social media links. All of that's down in the description below. You can also help the channel by using the donate link. Check us out on Patreon, see what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course you can hit the join button and become a channel member right here on YouTube. And this is the top 10 Transformers Headmasters characters, and there were a lot of votes, some interesting ones. Some people voted, for example, for Headmaster himself from Transformers Animated, I believe. We had votes rolling for everyone from Grand Max to Blur from the Titans Return line, to Octane, again from the Titans Return line, to Trigger Happy, which are all kind of pseudo Headmasters. None of them made the honorable mentions. None of them made the top 10 list. So, as always, we're going to kick things off with the honorable mentions first. And I put a couple of characters together. For example, first one of the honorable mentions is Fangry/Wilder. I counted both of them. I know that they could be counted as separate characters, but I felt like I would be giving them the best fighting chance if I kind of conglomerated their votes into one. So Fangry Wilder got 5 votes. 5. That's where we started off with the honorable mentions. Then we take some big jumps from there. The other ones in the honorable mentions, Siren, Shooter, Go Shooter, all put together were in the honorable mentions, as well as Nightbeat was in the honorable mentions, Highbrow, and who is that? Cerebros also in the honorable mentions. Couldn't read my own handwriting there. Sometimes it happens, man. Sometimes it happens. So yeah, Highbrow, Cerebros, Nightbeat, Fangry Wilder, and Siren/Shooter/Go Shooter. I count all of them together because it's technically the same mold. It's technically the same, not really the same character, but kind of the same character. You know, when we see it, some people know it as Go Shooter, some people know it as Siren, some people know it as Loudmouth. Either way, all of them were on the honorable mentions. None of them made the actual list. So who did? Well, we're going to kick things off, as we always do, with number 10 first. Now, number 10 kind of shocked me, to be honest with you, because it actually takes us to the last night, and a character that was introduced there that we saw in a small diminutive robot form that we were told was a headmaster, but we never actually saw act as a headmaster. In fact, the closest that we got was when we saw this character's plastic representation, and that being Cogman. Look, we never saw this body. We saw him driving the car, and we saw the head unit, but we never saw the full body with the head on it. I was shocked that this guy got the votes that he did. That being said, he is definitely a headmaster. He more follows the Japanese iteration, where the head is the main character and the body is really just a transtector, not transsector like I thought it was for many years. Apparently transtector is the actual term. Who knew? Either way you cut it, enough people thought of this guy when we were, you know, thinking about the top headmasters that he garnered enough votes to take the number 10 slot. And number 9 takes us to Master Force and the charming idealism known as Minerva. Oh wait, this is Nightbeat, but a lot of people know that the plastic representations of Nightbeat and Minerva were sort of used interchangeably back in G1. That being said, I think that we're overdue for a nice update to Minerva. There's been some third-party offerings, but nothing really official, other than I think like one little, because she's a Headmaster Junior, one little Titan Master that came with the God Ginrai like box set, if I'm not mistaken. Nevertheless, overall, I know this is Nightbeat. Overall, I'm just using it as a stand-in representation for Minerva. We all know that she has garnered sort of a cult following over the years. And I guess because of that cult following, she takes the number 9 slot. Number 8 is the loud, crude, and rude Ape Face and Spasma. Some people voted for Spasma being the head. Certainly in the like North American G1 iteration. Some people voted for Ape Face, so again, I put them all together. I love this guy. I think that this is a great update to him. When we got, during Titan's Return, updates of a lot of the Headmasters, a lot of people then said, we really need a proper Ape Face, because we just got that little Titan Master, and we really need a proper version of Snapdragon. Well, fast forward, what, 4 years later, 3 years later, and we do finally get a Voyager version of this guy. I always liked him. I thought he was funny. I thought he was like, him and Snapdragon, at least in the Rebirth, I thought were sort of like the Decepticon versions of the Dinobots. Like, they weren't too bright. They were just sort of, you know, lumbering and kind of violent. And I think it was even a little bit more hilarious that they were partnered with, you know, kind of partners that didn't really necessarily always want to work with them. I think that had we had a full fleshed out season 4, maybe even a season 5, we could have really dived into these characters a lot more to see just what sort of comedic overtones we could have, and to see how their relationships would have evolved over time. Nevertheless, the big lovable lug that turns into an ape in a plane solidifies himself at the number 8 slot. And wouldn't you know it, that at the number 7 slot we have technically his partner, the other HorrorCon that is associated with him. That, of course, is the new Earthrise Snapdragon. I like this guy. The only complaint at all that I have about him is I wish I could make, or I wish the elbows were a little deeper. I might try to do a custom mod, we'll see. But overall, like, this embodies, whether we're talking about the North American version of the character or the Japanese version of the character, this embodies him totally. Much like Ape Face, in Japan he often flanked Galvatron. In North America, his claim to fame is the fact that basically he's the whole reason that Daniel became RC's headmaster. You know, he kind of mauled Daniel. He was vicious. Ape Face was vicious. I still think he's more dinosaur than dragon, but that's just me. Either way you cut it, and honestly, I think some of the love that he got was because he had a recent release. Anyway you cut it, he solidified himself with enough votes to take the number 7 slot. Number 6 is the tough guy of the Autobot Headmasters, and a guy who had an extremely different head design in both the Japanese and the Rebirth versions of the character. And we recently had him updated, well, not so recently, I guess we had him updated within the last 3 or 4 years in the Titan's Return line, and the head that he had a representation of there was really closer to his Japanese iteration. Who is this tough guy I'm talking about? None other than Hardhead. And if you go by the Japanese iteration of the character, there's a lot more to his story, to his fiction. If you go by his Rebirth iteration of the character, really he's just kind of like almost like the Ironhide of the team. Like, he's the tough guy of the team, and I guess it makes sense since he turns into a tank and even has this big thing over his shoulder. I loved the G1 version. Didn't own it, friend did, but I was delighted when they updated him, and I'm delighted to have him in my Headmasters collection now. Some people have complained that these are a little too small, and they went with like a KO version that was more Voyager sized. You could certainly do that, but for me this works just fine and just nice, and I am very, very happy to have him in my collection, and I can honestly say that it makes sense that he solidifies himself at the number 6 slot. And you know what time it is? It's the halfway mark, and at the halfway mark we have the character who I think has the name that I like the most, the one who can control your mind, the one who probably should have had more votes, but he would have been cheating to get them by controlling your thoughts. I, of course, am talking about Mindwipe and Borath. Everything about this screams like vampires and like, you know, terror and Transylvania, and all of those things really play into the bat mode here, really play into his like ability to like hypnotize and get others to do his bidding. I love this character, and I always felt like Mindwipe had like a foreboding, threatening nature to him. Like when Mindwipe showed up, as limited as it was, I always felt like he had such ability to make things happen, bad things happen. Again, this is one of those examples of a character that could have been so super duper engaging. And while, you know, there have been iterations of him in the fiction over the years, a lot of people, when they think about Mindwipe, still think of the Rebirth, and a lot of people say the same thing as me. It would have been nice to see exactly how Borath and Mindwipe could have been fleshed out, because this was one of those iterations where the partner and the bot not only didn't get along, but I really feel like Borath was only going to comply because Mindwipe was able to control him in the end. Anyway you cut it, he's a very engaging, dynamic, and deep character, and for that reason he takes the number 5 slot. Now interestingly, number 4 takes us to a character that usually fades into the background. He's very intelligent, and one could say he's kind of a pencil pusher. Another could say he's a researcher. One could say that he knows a lot about the Cybertronian and Transformers' brains and works to kind of improve the processing ability of them. Others would say that he is a battler full of energy and vigor that goes to the forefront. It really depends on the continuity that you follow. Nevertheless, we're talking about Chrom and, to a lesser degree, Stylor. The version I know has Chrom kind of being meek, mild-mannered, Stylor kind of being more opulent and, you know, like he's enamored by like the succulent things of life, and the two sort of balance each other out. I think that he got the votes, largely that he got though, because of his characterization in the more recent comic series, and probably his relationship with Rewind, which is kind of funny because my understanding is that in the recent comics he's not actually a headmaster. So it's sort of weird that this version is, and sort of weird that he would appear this high on a list of headmaster characters when I think some of the love he got didn't come from the fact that he's a headmaster. Nevertheless, whatever the reason, people are drawn to this rather meek, mild, but intelligent Autobot, who I do think looks pretty cool. He garnered enough support to solidify himself at the number 4 slot. Now, fun fact, number 3 would have been my personal number 1 because it's my favorite of the Headmasters. As a matter of fact, it's the only Headmaster that I ever had a G1 version of myself as a lad. So I was very glad to see him get the support that he got. Though, admittedly, I think some of the support that he got came from his characterization in the more recent comics. Nevertheless, others did point out to the fact that he looked cool, that he had a very different kind of alt mode, and that he was instrumental in trying to help develop the Autobot Headmaster technology. Naturally, I'm talking about none other than Brainstorm, and to a lesser degree, Arcana. Look, I like Arcana, I like Brainstorm, I don't need a whole lot of justification. This is the coloration that speaks to me. Some people prefer the more blue version of him from Japan. They prefer the kind of black hair on the chest. They even prefer him having a face, and I get that, but this to me screams my childhood, and for that reason I'm very, very happy that he got the support that he got. I don't care why he got the votes, I'm just glad that he did, and garnered enough to solidify himself at the number 3 slot. Now, number 2 and number 1 probably aren't going to come as surprises to too many people. By the way, I do want to throw a particular shout out to Energon Omega Supreme, who got a vote, and I really didn't understand why until I learned that the head can come off and turn into a small robot. Like, that's something else I didn't know about that mold. That's such a great, versatile mold, man. It's not one I've owned myself, but there's so much it can do. That's besides the point, because we're at the top 2, and like I said, I don't think that the top 2 are going to be a surprise to anyone. What might be is the order that they come in, because at number 2 we have, one of my prized possessions myself. This is my Fortress Maximus. And Fort Max, I mean, undeniable. If you follow Japan, I mean, he was the leader of the Autobots. Well, to a lesser degree it was Fortress, but you get the idea. In North America, everybody has known this guy for 30 plus years, and they all know that he's a headmaster within a headmaster. If you follow the animation, then you know that the smallest headmaster, though we call him Emissary on the Titans Return version, we know that it's Spike, and then we know that that became the head of Cerebros. We know Cerebros who did make the honorable mentions himself, becomes the head of the big guy himself, Fort Max. I kind of like the Japanese version where Fortress is the head of the huge ship transtector that is the Maximus ship. I think that that's a great iteration. Nevertheless, any way you cut it, this massive Titan was bound to get a ton of support, and that's why he solidifies himself at the number 2 slot. And number 1, we're finally there, takes us to a quote from the head of this character. A quote that kind of sums up Headmasters as a whole. A quote that basically says, if you want victory, it's attainable. All it's going to cost you is your heads. Of course, that's the voice of Lord Zarek himself when he proposed the idea of Decepticon Headmaster technology. Naturally, with his own power-hungry ambitions, he was going to be the main Decepticon Headmaster. And he built the city, the base that would become known as the mighty Bite of Scorpenoc. Scorpenoc takes the number 1 slot. Not really far away. He and Fort Max were very close in the running for who would take number 1 and number 2. This guy eked out the win, I think because he's on a lot of people's minds. How could he not eke out a win? You know, honestly, how could he not eke out a win? This is a tremendous offering. He's definitely a headmaster. Again, we have a headmaster within a headmaster. I personally call the little one Lord Zarek. I call the deluxe size main head Mega Zarek. And then I call the body Scorpenoc. For the record, because somebody asked, and I did not show it in the review, I just want to do it here. I'm gonna put that up. And I'm gonna try. This isn't as easy as I thought it was gonna be. Somebody asked me if the elbows on this guy were strong enough to hold a deluxe, and I said the elbows on mine are strong enough to hold a Voyager. Here he is holding Ape Face, and like he can do it no problem. Like the elbows on mine are very strong. I did not even know that weak elbows was an issue with the guy. I haven't heard of that, but apparently it is. Mine are very good. I hope yours are too. Far and away, he is one of the top ones. I was very, very happy with the way it turned out, and I'm glad that Fort Max and this guy took the top slot. Was there any other way it was really going to be? And there we go, guys. Once again, we've gone from 10 down to 1, and we have counted the top 10 headmasters as voted on by you guys all across social media. Very interesting. Highbrow did not get like as much support as I thought he would. I really thought that Weird Wolf would get more support than he did. I really thought that we would have more support for Skull Cruncher, Skull Smasher, whatever name you want to use. So a few sort of surprised me. And then if I go back to the list here, like some of the characters that appeared on this really blew me away. Like Devastator got a vote because of when Prowl like becomes his upper body head. It was a stretch, but Devastator got a vote. We also had, who else got some votes here that didn't make it on the list? Sunstreaker got a vote, apparently. Buzz Lightyear had a Transformers crossover offering. Buzz Lightyear got a vote. And Blur got a vote. Oh, and so did Metal Hawk, which I assume was related to his offering in Titan's Return, I guess. That opened up the field a lot more because a lot of characters kind of became pseudo headmasters. Nevertheless, I think I'm pretty happy with how the votes shook out this time around. Let me know if your favorites made the list or didn't. You know, I love to hear from you guys. I appreciate you coming by and giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, there's a donate link in the description. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we offer to you through Teespring. Or, of course, you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member, baby. Naturally, please hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us. Don't forget that somehow, someway, each and every single day, man, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.